Alright, I've got to admit something. I was gonna sell this bike after I saw, like, people with faster motorcycles, especially, like, Yamaha MT-07s and 09s. You know, which is really, like, this is pretty much the same bike as the XJ6R. The difference is, like, they primarily sell that bike overseas. And people that turn their XJ6Rs into Streetfighter styles, it's funny because then it starts to look very close to the XJ6. Yeah, I was like, this bike, you know, may not be fast enough and this and that. I was focusing on the wrong things. And when I would think about modifying the bike, I would doubt it again. I was like, maybe I should use a different bike or buy a donor bike in the future, you know, just to make sure nothing is wrong, nothing gets messed up with this bike. Since then, I would say my entire mentality regarding that crap has been completely changed. So I've decided, for one, I'm not selling this bike ever, which means I don't have to wait for a donor bike. I'm just going to go ahead and turn this bike into my dream Streetfighter style motorcycle. I'm gonna change the whole thing completely. So the reason why I'm looking at it in a virtual space is because my main job has been working as a 3D artist for the past 6 years, and I can utilize that now because one of the main things I want to do is get a 3D printer and start modifying the bike and printing parts for it. I've seen people do it on YouTube. It works quite amazingly. And you know, you don't have to just print PLA, you can print ASA or many different materials that are UV resistant and that are primarily made for outdoor use, which for like motorcycle parts, like, you know, little fenders or like little wings and whatnot, that's perfect because, you know, your bike is constantly outside and all that. So, you know, I quite like this bike as it is, but there are some parts that I really don't like. For instance, the handlebars, they gotta go, as well as the header light. I don't know what it is, but it always looked like a, you know, like a freaking bug to me. Like on the FZ6R, at least it's covered, like you have this nice transition from the body to the header light, but the XJ6 is naked, so it doesn't have a lot of parts to it, so it's not really covered. But anyway, let's look at it in a better environment. So this is, you know, let's say the current state of the bike. This model isn't fully like accurate. The exhaust isn't stock on this model. It also doesn't have the license plate and whatnot. That's fine, we can work with this. So the first changes that I can already make are some of the easier ones that don't require 3D printing or machining or whatever, because I don't have, you know, a lot of the equipment yet. I don't even have a 3D printer. So, you know, that's all like materials and hardware that I need to afford first, which is, you know, currently like, and I also don't have like a workspace. So I would have to, you know, make it in the backyard when my parents aren't home or whatever, like when the cars aren't there. So I'm quite limited in that regard, but also because I'd be working outside, and you know, in the Netherlands it rains a lot, so, you know, I couldn't just leave the bike, which would be very convenient to just leave all the parts and continue the next day, but I would have to cover it, or preferably just bring everything inside, because, you know, if the ground gets moist, it's just not a good idea overall. So parts that I can change, I will. For now, I'm not going to do everything all at once. But the first upgrade will be a few things regarding the handlebars. So I think for now, I'm going to go with I was thinking between clip-ons and a drag bar. I think clip-ons will be a bit too extreme, going from these regular handlebars that are quite high right now. Changing that to a drag bar is already going to be, you know, like a change for me. So I'm going to go with that. And then it currently has hand grip warmers, but they're old, and, you know, the right one isn't working. The left one works a little bit, so I'll change those out. I'm gonna get the Oxford hand grip warmers, because the problem was previously, because of the current hand grip warmers, I can't fit anything on the bar ends, so that will change as well. I will install the bar end mirrors, the ones that I've been wanting for a long time, and I think that's pretty much the upgrades on the handlebars. And a more expensive upgrade would be the exhaust system. There's not a lot of shops over here that sell really good exhaust systems for the XJ6, but I already got my eye on a couple. But let me show you what that would kind of look like, right? So I made a change from this to this. Now there's quite a few changes here. For For one, I think it looks way, it has a way more aggressive look. And, I didn't really add too much to it. Again, let's focus on, the dashboard here. All I did was, attach the new handlebars. Ignore the cable work. This is all just virtually, like in real life. It'll be different. But I got the bar end mirrors. So the whole look is way flatter. It doesn't have all these parts sticking out. Now I did add a few more additional parts to it, like these little wings, and primarily the seat is completely different. It exists of 2 parts, and then there's these wings as well. Now for these parts, I'm gonna need the 3D printer, including the seat, like obviously how you're gonna 3D print a seat. I would print out the frame, and then the rest of it will be filled with gel pads, and then either faux leather or real leather. And I've seen it on YouTube. It's quite doable. It's not impossible. And then a new exhaust system, a nice muffler there. But I think that would quite a look. I think it looks way better. But this is like, aside from the seat and like the 3D printed parts, this is stuff you can do right now very quickly, and it costs money, but like aside from that, it doesn't require a lot of work put on the bike, right? Ultimately though, I want to completely like revamp the bike. So what I did was I grabbed a bunch of parts from other bikes, or in this case from the Ducati Streetfighter V4S, which I think is one of the most gorgeous bikes out there. And, obviously I wouldn't be able to just grab these parts from an actual Ducati and put them on my bike. For one, that would be way too expensive, and two, you can't just slap parts from one bike on another bike. But let me show you what that would look like. So here's the 3rd iteration. That looks way different than this one, and way different than the first one. Doesn't even look like an XJ6 anymore. But let me show you what I did here. So for one, I removed the handlebars completely, and I have clip-ons, right? And in reality, I might have like some risers as well, like a 2-inch riser to have clearance with the tank. But yeah, same bar and mirrors. I like these ones. The speedometer is completely different. I would use an upgraded speedometer, one that has more information, like gear indicators, all that sort of stuff. Because you might as well, because I tried it with this one. It's primarily this piece over here that just doesn't look good. Like this part over here just doesn't look right when you have it, when the front is completely like empty like this. It's not a look. But yeah, these are literally the lights of the Streetfighter V4S that I just slapped on there. Now in reality, I would 3D print a lot of these parts here, but before doing so, I would have to model them. And my mentality is like, if I'm gonna 3D model it, I might as well completely make it look custom, right? I don't want the bike to just look like a Ducati from Temu, like, oh, this guy just put on parts from a Ducati on his bike and wants to make it look like it. This is just like concepting, right? I'm just concepting at this phase, but I do like the look of the lights. But I would make something similar. I haven't modeled anything yet. I would probably sketch it out first, but something nice and small, and maybe like, I just like the way the designers from Ducati think. So I want to like go in that direction. Then the back piece, also just straight up ripped it from the Ducati. If I take these parts away, it means if you look at the frame of the bike, I would have to cut this part off and either like weld or like, I'm not gonna worry about all the technical parts for now. That's for later. I know it can be done, and I've already like researched the costs of all the equipment and whatnot. But again, this is like one of the end goals, not the ultimate end goal. We'll see how crazy this project will get. But yeah, this would probably be one of the end looks for this bike. And then, considering I'd be building every part myself into modifying the bike into this look, I would have setups, right? Like for touring, I would have a whole different setup that I could install, so I can attach bags to the bike and I could tour through Europe to Austria or wherever. And we might be looking at a more, more touring setup like the original, something in that direction, and less like this one. So I'm currently in the concepting phase, but yeah, soon enough I will be going to this direction here. I think getting that handlebar installed is a big thing. And yeah, of course it'll get difficult it'll get expensive as well. You know, like we're talking about flashing the ECU, for instance. The adapter cable alone will cost around 200 to 600 euros from what I've seen. It's not cheap, but necessary nonetheless. But I think it's fun, you know, like I know this is gonna be a rant, but one thing I've noticed with the biking community is when I see all these Instagram people, well, there's many different parts to that, of course, but you have an entire male and female community, and I have plenty to say about that as well, but maybe for another video. But in short, if you look at the female community and motorcycles, the majority of them are treating the bike like it's a handbag, right? Like for instance, you see people on a Ninja 300 or 400 and they get a nice wrap done and then they're sitting on the bike posing on it, most of the time wearing, you know, revealing clothes like leggings and whatnot, showing their ass on the bike, whatever they're doing, anything but riding the bike. But my point being, you see people complimenting them like they built the bike, and sometimes you see people saying like, wow, look at you getting compliments for a bike someone else built. And you know, those people sound like sour apples, but there's a point in it though, you know, like I don't want to, you could go with the flow, you know, you could put a wrap on your bike and claim it as yours, but I want to do so much more with it, honestly. Like I want to understand these machines on a different level. I want to combine my hobbies essentially. You know, the past 6 years I've been doing nothing but 3D modeling and working on like video games and whatnot. Now that I got this new hobby of mine, I've been riding a lot on my bike. If I can combine the two, you know, my virtual skills being translated into real life, which is all possible. I think we live in the most advanced era ever, you know, like so far I've been doing quite some work on the bike by asking ChatGPT and taking pictures and plugging it into the AI, and it's outputting like all this information and tutorials, basically step-by-step tutorials on how to fix something, which is crazy. And I think using that knowledge, using these tools, yeah, why not? And there's plenty of stuff on YouTube as well, you know, like for instance, I look at a lot of tutorials for the FZ6R, because you will find a lot more tutorials for that bike than the XJ6. But if you think about it, there are some differences, but essentially it's the same bike, you know, like sure, you got a couple more parts, your bike is more covered, but like from the inside it's pretty much the same, enough for the tutorials to make sense, basically. Yeah, I'm excited to start this project. You know, it might be a little bit off right now. Like my priorities are not really at building bikes at the moment. I'm going to school, become a licensed fitness instructor, so that means I quit the whole 3D world, because basically the gaming industry collapsed. Companies don't hire for junior positions, so pretty much wasted all that crap. But maybe not. You know, let's make sure my 3D skills, you know, to transform a bike to a whole different thing. But yeah, once I get my diploma, I can start working immediately. And it's a pretty short course, so I should be done with it fairly quickly. And yeah, then I can get started and, you know, start acquiring all these parts and hardware, everything I need to start working on these, on this big project. And I'll document everything right here on this channel or the Instagram or whatever. But yeah, I'll keep you updated on that. In the meantime, hit the subscribe button to not miss out, and I'll see you in the next video. Yeah, see ya.